What a beautiful face I have found in this place that is circling all around the sun. What a beautiful dream that could flash on the screen in a blink of an eye and be gone from me. Soft and sweet, let me hold it close and keep it here with me. And one day we will die, and our ashes will fly from the aeroplane over the sea. But for now we are young, let us lay in the sun and count every beautiful thing we can see. Love to be in the arms of all I'm keeping here with me. What a curious life we have found here tonight. There is music that sounds from the street. There are lights in the clouds and there's ghosts all around. Hear a voice as it's rolling and ringing through me. Soft and sweet, how the notes all bend and reach above the tree. Now how I remember you, how I would push my fingers through your mouth to make those muscles move. You made your voice so smooth and sweet, but now we keep where we don't know. All secrets sleep in winter clothes with one you loved so long ago. Now we don't even know it. What a beautiful face I have found in this place that is circling all around the sun. And when we meet on a cloud, I'll be laughing out loud. I'll be laughing with everyone I see. Can't believe how strange it is to be anything at all.
All right, so here it is. I'm definitely not going to admit how long this took me to make, but yeah, now that it's done, I'm actually very happy with how things turned out. It is technically a remake, or I guess reimagine, whatever. It's one of those of map I made way back in, I guess, 2012 for Reach. Same name. But the budget just did not allow for making this the way that I would want it to look. The hell section was basically just a particularly rocky part of the Forge world with a bunch of random explosions going off to make it more hell-like. But yeah, as soon as I saw that they had all these new tools, just the amount of things that would be possible in Infinite's Forge when it finally came out, I knew I was going to have to do a remake of this because I had always, probably my favorite concept, at least from the beginning. I had a lot of fun with that map, but it just never looked exactly the way that I wanted it to. So right from the beginning on this, I wanted to get the three big kind of epic set pieces in place. Those being the giant bottomless pit to hell, the temple, the landing plate down here, which kind of go together, and then the teleporter back up to heaven. So I got those in. I got the logic for the teleporter functioning first because it was just taking you back up to the top of the cylinders to make the tube. basically what it's doing is every time someone goes through, it's resetting the position to 1 of 8, which are upstairs, which we can look at in a second. The way this teleporter is working is actually a little bit funny because whenever they were coming through this detection zone, I would have to deal with the fact that they weren't oriented in the proper way to be facing, since there are 8 different receiver positions for the receiver node up here, that they, be facing the wrong direction. So I tried to fix it by changing the players, orientation as or right after they were going through it. That was causing all kinds of weird reactions and made the frame, the screen was bugging out. Lots of stuff, lots of complications. Seemed like it might cause the path to get thrown off sometimes. So the workaround for that is actually that as they go through this, these slip space FX have a feature that blacks out the screen when you get within a certain range of them. And so whenever you go through this detection area, it's actually for like 1 frame sending you way out back behind the map to be picked up by this receiver teleporter. So you're teleported to here by scripting. It throws you into here with the momentum you're going to have when you come out at the top. This is blacked out because you're by another one of these things. And then it puts you up here because this one is set to have you oriented in the direction that you go into it. And so that way, as here it is, the invisible teleporter, this thing switches position to 1 of these 8 arrows every time you go through, and you're always aimed directly at the map as you're coming in. So as soon as I had the 3 big elements in place, the 3 major set pieces, then from that point forward, most of the effort for the rest of the build was just trying to make the map as competitively viable as possible given those 3 elements. Because whenever I do these, I don't want to just make something that looks cool or something that has 1 or 2 gimmicks that you can run through a couple times and then it'll get old because you're not really playing a game. I want to make it so that there can be, basically play like a regular objective game, except just with some really epic moments thrown in there, where you can, instead of having some guy randomly spawn, run out and kill the flag carrier to end the game, you'll have somebody flying out of the sky back into heaven that has 1 last second shot at them, or, gets knocked into the pit while trying to claim the flag again. It just add, scale it up, but also keep it so it's understandable and as competitive as possible. And so the way to do that for this was, it was originally a King of the Hill map, because the one from 2012 was a King of the Hill map. But as I was working on it, I put in the capture the flag objectives as well, and I started to realize it actually works. I really like the way that the capture the flag works in this, because it functions as basically a combination of capture the flag and King of the Hill, where since every time somebody's killed, they're sent back to hell. So I'll go down there and look at them in a little bit, but there are 10 different respawns up along this hill. They each have kind of their own channel coming out, so you get a decent run out before you're in the thick of things. But so you can try and, somebody's going to have to progress the flag. The movement speed's turned down if you use the game type. But you can try and hold heaven, especially this interior ring of heaven, as if, basically you're playing a big zone King of the Hill, because everybody's going to be coming in from these 8 points on the outside. Once they land in, they'll have a quick glimpse coming in of what might be going on in the middle. But once they land, they're not going to have any sight lines at the center of the map. So they're going to have to commit to coming through one of the lower gates or going up and over. And so if you get numbers up here, if you win an early conflict, or you win any conflict, knock them out, you can try and get people up to high ground to basically spot. The more cooperative your team is, the better this is going to work, and the further you can expand it out. But you can, try and sight people coming in, call it out. The way that I did there, the gates are labeled, the interior gates are labeled A through D, but that's not really as useful. I found is On the side with the red flag, all the flowers are red. There are flowers at the base of basically all these palm trees, I think, along with 2 rows at the beginning where the initial spawns are. So you'll see that on all of these 3 sections, it's going to be red. Then the left side of this middle section, they're red along that tree line, nothing in the middle. And these are, I don't know, lavender. I mean, they're not technically blue. They're not red. I mean, you'll be able to tell they're not red. So yeah, this is the blue side has, I cannot remember what these flowers are called, but yeah. So the flowers are basically the easiest way to tell where you are right when you're coming into the map or when you're on the inside, because you can also, the trees on either side of the staircases in the middle also have blue or red flowers. The biggest hurdle to overcome when trying to make this play like a understandable competitive game, given the very unusual architecture of the map, was how to balance it out so that people who get control of the upstairs heaven area can't just dig in and run the game out, because obviously you're being sent out of here every time you die. And it puts you, it's basically a very exaggerated kind of high ground you can get on. And so I had to figure out ways to counteract that. The 2 main ones are the power-ups, which I'll get into in a second, and the weapon placement. Because aside from this sword, which comes back very infrequently, kind of goes along with the power-up, there's just assault rifle, pulse carbine, and randomized pistols up here. It's enough to have everyone have ammo, but it's not really any decent ranged options, and no power weapons, as opposed to people coming back from hell who either fell down or respawned back on this kind of volcanic ash hill, I suppose, strewn with rocks, is coming out. The commandos here, they're going to be, these 2 rooms are the primary weapon locations. It's kind of computer room / arsenal, I guess. I don't know how many people really have those, but that's how this one works. And there's BR, stalker rifle, shotgun in this one. It's mangler over here. We've got cinder shot, and sniper rifle are holograms coming out of the holo tables whenever the game's running. And then on the other side, instead of sniper and cinder shot, it's rocket launcher and shock rifle, and then this is a heat wave instead of the shotgun. Everything else is the same. And then, like I said, the other equipment advantage to coming back from hell is the power up down here, which this one, it used to be called demon power. They have very limited vocabulary for the strings, so I had to change it to death power because that was a word I could actually use in the message. But yeah, this one responds every 180 seconds. The one upstairs, which is, I think, King Power, and it was originally going to be God Power, but it's now King Power, respawns every 240. They used to have custom weapons that they would forcibly put into your weapon slots, which was Diminisher of Hope and a combo weapon of the Ravager Rebound and the Sentinel Beam, which was basically a Ravager Rebound that it looked awesome. It looks like a crazy explosive flamethrower. It really thematically fit in well. But that way I had to make it so they couldn't pick up or drop weapons while doing that, and it caused all kinds of issues with the objectives, because the way it treats the objective, you can pick it up, it makes a 3rd weapon slot, drops your primary to your 2nd, drops your 2nd into the 3rd one that's invisible, and then you're holding the flag. But when you try and drop the flag, if you have can't drop on, it still lets you pick up the flag even if you have can't pick up weapons on, but when you drop it, it insta teleports back to the stand, and it was a whole mess, and it was causing some other weird issues. So eventually I dropped that. There's power weapons around the power-ups. You can become a real OP maniac as intended. And but yeah, basically the power-ups are the same thing. It's 1.5 speed, 1.5 sprint speed, 1.5 jump, and then double shield, double health. The only difference, and there is still a difference, is that the equipment that you get a infinite hookshot with With this one, you get infinite repulsor with the king power upstairs. But yes, again, so the one down here is coming back every 180 seconds. The one upstairs is 240. So there's going to be someone coming from hell with the demon power more often than there will be somebody upstairs with the power. So it should be able to shift the balance, make it easier to make pushes back upstairs. And then the third thing, I guess I said there were two earlier, but the other thing that had to be in consideration was just the timing for everything. So there's reduced movement speed on the flag carrier. It takes about 35 seconds to get from one flag stand to the other. And that is basically identical to the amount of time if you're killed, including the respawn, and go back. It's 30 to 35 seconds to get back up to heaven if you're taking the fastest route possible. And then obviously if you make, a detour to pick up weapons or whatever else, it can take somewhat longer from there. But yeah, I guess so. Fastest time possible would be one score basically, but obviously there's other people on your team who can be holding up the progress of the objective the whole time while you're trying to recover and get back. Or if you have time, you can get more powerful weapons. And then the time to get back up from falling down the pit is about 20 seconds. 20 seconds to be back upstairs, probably like 25 to be involved in things again. So it's preferable to fall down than to die, but both aren't good. So you're going to want to avoid doing either of those. For the all-around layout of the map, the upstairs section is much more of a typical kind of any game type map. I'm thinking about putting these out again and splitting them. Because the thing I'd have to really redo is all the spawn points, but I think they could both function as multi-purpose maps, particularly this one, because it's bilaterally mirrored, I think would be the right way to say it, where there's the three sections over here are just mirrored on the opposite team end, and then the middle is intersected by these sections of three long tree lines. I really like the way these work. They don't look like much, but given that the pits on the inside of you here, just backing up into cover on these give you a huge amount of cover from anyone on the other half facing you, because they're gonna have to run around all the way to the far side of the hole, at which point they'll be at kind of medium to long range, and you can just kind of pop up over these. It's a good place to lose someone, especially somebody powered up is chasing you. There's a good chance they're going to overshoot the jump. Go around, you can get back, go underneath, something like that. Had a lot of fun screwing around on these because it's an interesting area. I don't know. You'll see what I mean, hopefully. And then there's basically three different primary levels here. There's ground level. Then there's these sections with the trees, where the four sections you fly in from that are offset from the middle. And they you can jump to them. They are taller than you are, but you can get up over. There's usually half cover on top of each of these. So they kind of create a hallway, but also you can get up there easily. Then the second level up, which is the two bases, the platforms coming around the tops of the tree lines here. All of this you cannot reach by jumping or clambering up onto. However, the whole thing's planned out so that if one of the two power-ups is active, anyone who is powered up will be able to clear all these jumps in one jump. Basically, if you have a power-up and you get up here, what you're trying to do is clear all of the enemy team out of the upstairs area and then keep them out, because you can move the objective and you move it slightly faster. I think you can get across in like 30 seconds instead of 35, but that's kind of a waste of the ability, just because what it's really good for is you can reach everywhere on the map. Because as I'm going to get into, there are two higher sections, kind of sniper perches, that do not have a lot of cover, and they're accessible for unpowered players primarily from the outside rim when you're coming in back from hell. There are these ramps that lead up to these sections that have very kind of narrow walkway around, and a small platform to stand on. You can take shots from there, and people can reach you by doing a 2-stage jump onto these pillars and get over there. And also, like I said, you don't have any cover really, and it's a very narrow platform, so you can be shot down pretty easily or just have to retreat. And then 2 of these light towers have pipes going up into them. I don't know what this means exactly, but I thought it looked cool to have all the technology powered by, I guess, the souls or dead bodies of vanished guys. So, yep, they're sitting in the tar. This thing's sucking something out, putting it in the lamp, and you can run up it and get on top. And this is an extremely kind of exaggerated sniper position. Again, you don't have any cover. It's tough to get, and anyone with a power-up that, as I was saying earlier, can reach you just through a series of normal jumps. It's much easier for them to get up there than unpowered players. So it gives you a big advantage in chasing down and driving out anyone who from the opposing team who's up here while you have a power-up. For the layout downstairs in Hell, it is much more atypical to what you'd see for a normal map, where it is serving as as the run back area to the objectives and to heaven. So the respawns are all back in these volcanic ash hills. There are 10 of them along the back here. Each has its own kind of channel to get at least partially out onto the hill before you're interacting with the other people coming back on this hill. The thing does a pretty good job of not putting you near threats when you respawn. So unless you have some crazy situation where like 8 guys have died all exactly at the same time, you're usually clear, at least partially way out onto like the ash field here. The rocks for cover and the scrap metal for cover are kind of, there's a higher density on the outside than the inside. The outside pathways, being longer, are somewhat safer. You also have some cover from the scaffolding for these 2 gangplank long walkways. And as I was saying, you know, these are slightly atypical. You wouldn't normally put a open walkway this long onto a map, but in this case, since most traffic's heading that direction and it's unreachable from below, it works for this. The lava field out in the middle is pretty open. However, the landing dish here, the kind of sacrificial plate, provides cover from above for anyone who's on the rooftop of the temple or the other 2 rooftops. So when you're coming back here, I guess there's 3-4 primary ways back, since it's basically symmetrical on each side. The fastest run back is simply to run straight to either one of these large staircases on the outside and up. However, that leaves you the most exposed to anyone else who's respawning. You're also pretty exposed to people who are looking down from above. However, anyone camping out on the roof will not actually be able to see you coming up the stairs. However, you know, you won't be able to see them either. So it's the least cover. You don't go by any of the weapon pickups directly or anything, but it is the fastest way back, and that's the one you can make it back in 30 seconds, even if you've died, including the respawn time. The second way, basically, you can get back is you can either get onto one of these long gangplanks and run in and come through the second floor, and then there's a first floor door, which you can also come through, and it is directly below the gangplank. And there's also, off of this scaffolding that goes out over the lava, a third side entrance over here, second entrance for the first floor. And once you're in here, there's 2 sets of double staircases. The first one takes you up to the elevated second platform that goes all the way around the octagon, and then the second staircase will take you up and out onto the roof. And then finally, if you want the safest route, but it is the longest route, you can take, and this would probably again be for larger games. There's not a ton of traffic down here. You're not going to run into as many problems getting back, even like the medium route and getting the weapons is probably, but if you need to get back up, and just make sure you get back upstairs safe, the best bet will be to go along the outsides and to one of these elevators. Then you hit it. It's got a 3-second travel time to the roof, and from where you get off the elevator, you have a pretty much straight shot with, cover you can jump behind the whole way. over to the launcher and back to heaven. Now this roof section is part of this I really like a lot. I like the way it plays. I kind of wish that it was. That's why, again, I might want to split these into 2 separate maps that can be all-purpose maps, because it's a really there are tons of long sight lines you can see from one roof all the way to the other in certain situations, and the ramped platform in the middle where the launcher is a little higher than head height. The base level is the same for all 3 of these, but there's just a bunch of slightly different elevation tiers on each of them due to the ramps and the kind of catwalks. And so what you end up with is, if you're standing on one of the walkways here, you can see anyone who is at your level or higher on the opposite end, and you can get back out of sightline just by dropping down to a lower level pretty much at any time. You can get up on top of these vents. So there's a lot of cool long-range options. If somebody has a sniper rifle or even a shock rifle or something else, you can obviously get into a real strong position being out on the ends of either of these. And then I'm hoping I can see the way I was testing this out. There were not a lot of instances, because it's usually smaller teams, it's just easier to do. And it's very hard to hold in hell, but I feel like in a larger game, you'll be able to actually hold hell and keep people out of the launcher back up to heaven, which could be, well, clearly, if they're not able to get to where the objectives are, they're not going to be able to score. And especially a team, if they're able to get a hold of the power up down here and they have control of heaven, could drop down and try and hold here. I think that'd be really cool to see. There's 7 different approach angles to the temple roof, however, including the launcher putting you up there when you're coming out of the back of the temple. So it's going to be very difficult, but it's something that might be worth doing if you're in an advantageous enough situation. And finally, there are 3 guard bots in hell. There are 2 normal ones on the outside. They are locked onto Ravager. They can't pick up weapons. They can't drop weapons. They're always using a Ravager, and they're set to Marine difficulty. So realistically, unless you come around a corner and run into both of them at the same time, they're not going to take you out most of the time. If you're engaged in a fight with someone else, or you're trying to rush back, not paying attention, they're meant to slow you down a bit. They have 12-second respawn, so they're not going to be. It's not a huge deal. It's just a distraction. Thematically, they fit in well because they're constantly launching flames all over the place in hell, which just looks right. And then there is a 3rd bot, which is the Temple Guard, and it's set up so that he spawns only when you've committed to landing on the platform. So basically, if you go stand out here, if he's still alive from killing somebody else, he could still be out there, and you can kill him and get on and get through without having to deal with it. But usually you are going to have to jump in. You're going to have to commit to going onto the platform with him. He's on recruit and set at 75% health. So really, as long as you don't panic and just unload, half of a clip into him, he goes down very easy. But at the same time, he has a sword and he's sprinting at you. So he definitely can't. If he gets to you, he's going to get you.